Good morning. Hello, Sustainable Families. Flora McCormick here, licensed clinical professional counselor and parenting coach and early childhood mental health consultant. And I'm so happy to have Rachel here. She has spoken to us once before, and she just finished up her 3-month program and said to me, I have searched for this for years and now have these changes within 3 months. And so I wanted to give you a chance to just share about that, whatever you would like to share about that journey and what it involved and what it's meant to you.
Sure. Well, there were a lot of things about my childhood that I would have wanted to be different. And I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of, oh, I would want to do this different. And hopefully we always want our kids to make that their own and do what works for them and be better parents. Like, we want that for our families. We want them to be more healthy and that kind of thing. So that's been a family goal for my husband and I, that we will be healthier than, the previous generation and before that. It's just an important goal for us to be connected. And so that was part of our motivation for finding this. It was also because I didn't feel like I had a lot of tools as a parent when I came into it. I very much had primarily one tool, which was spanking, and I didn't like the way that it made me feel. I didn't like the way that it kind of brought out, I feel like, the worst in me. And I used to yell a lot, and granted, there was a lot of stress at that time. My husband's military, he was gone a lot. We didn't have a lot of family support, and we had 4 young kids in, 6 years, just barely 6 years. So a lot going on there. And we just really felt like we needed more support. And so I would kind of read up on these parenting things, like I'd try to learn more, but I just felt like I didn't have the support and the consistency that we needed as a family. And I also felt myself going back and forth between extremes, like something Flora discusses is the triangle, where you try to be really nice, and then you lose it because your kids aren't listening. And then you feel really bad and you really want to do better. And then it kind of starts all over again because you don't know how, like, you don't have the tools all the time. And so the reason that, like, I've loved this program so much is because it's given us the tools and the support at the same time. And you're in the group calls with other parents who are going through similar phases with their kids or similar challenges. And I think one of the hardest things sometimes about parenting in this day and age is feeling like you're alone, right? We don't have, generally speaking, a lot of parents or grandparents around and lots of cousins and siblings to help out. We live very independently, and that's a blessing in a lot of ways, and it's also really hard in some other ways. And so being able to have this support system has been really huge for our family. Honestly, I just didn't feel like I could make the same progress kind of on our own, trying to always just throw things together and hoping they stuck. And one thing I love about Flora's program is it's about sustainable parenting. So it's about making it work in the long term. And there are times when I notice, oh, I'm getting off track. Like, I remember that this is a boundary I need to set, because if I don't set this boundary, then I'm going to get too frustrated, and then I'm going to yell, or I'm going to just not be able to respond where they need me, where my kids need me. And so it's really a helpful framework without being a formula. I've never been a fan of formulas because everyone is so unique, and so we always wanted to have more of a framework that worked for everybody. More based on, like, general principles, like the kindness and the firmness. How does that look? So I can tell you how it looks in our home now. I'm not afraid to say no to my kids. I was afraid for a long time because I have really intense kids, and some of you know what that's like to have, like, the kids that are extra. And I have 2 of those kids, and it's not as simple as just saying no. Like, there has to be the empathy with it as well. And how do you do that? And Flora, talks about what that looks like in detail, and she definitely goes into practicing it with you during the group calls as well. And if you wanted to do a one-on-one, she would do that with you in that context if you needed more support. I found that the group support was so great that and there's a lot of one-on-one built into that, even, that I felt like I didn't need a lot of the one-on-one that was offered as well. But every family is unique, and it may be helpful for a different family to have more of that. But I just felt so supported by it. So, like I was saying, about what it looks like for our family, is I know now that if I set a boundary and it's new, it's probably going to be a little hard on our kids at the beginning. Sometimes it's not, though. So I kind of prepare myself like, it's the first time we set this boundary. They're probably not going to like it. But then I stick to it. We explain it, and we give them the two roads. You can do this and this happens, or you can do this and this happens. And we offer the empathy, I see that you're feeling really disappointed about that. That makes sense because this is where you're coming from. And just kind of being more in tune with them and figuring out, why does that thing matter to them? Why is this important? What's going on in their mind that this is hard for them? And then just being consistent in what we talk about together with our kids. Flora talks a lot about problem solving with your kids, and it really gets their buy-in so that they are not, so that you're not just always coming down from up top. You're still the authority. You're still making the choices. You're still saying yes to this. Let's think about that some more. That's not going to work. But ultimately, you're still in charge, but you're giving them enough say that they're invested in it. And that's really the dynamic I've always wanted with my kids, was more of I'm in charge. However, I want a collaborative family. I really didn't have that growing up at all. I actually desired to have family meetings growing up, and I brought it up several times, and it was never really valued. And so I see my kids as equals. We may have different roles, but I do see them as equals. And part of that to me is treating them with respect, and not expecting like perfect respect when I'm not giving it, right? Like just kind of being human with them, and realizing like we all are growing. Even as adults, we're still learning and growing. And I've really appreciated the program because parenting is really hard work. And if you're doing things differently than your parents and grandparents did, because we live in a different time and there's a lot of other factors, it's hard to do that and feel confident about it until you learn more skills and that kind of thing. And so it's just been wonderful, and I'm really grateful we found it. Like Flora said, we looked into several other programs before that, and I just felt like financially they were really costly. And I thought, I don't really know, though. I don't really know that this is what we're looking for. And when I found Flora's programming, the name for it, the kind and firm, just her focus was what I wanted to focus on with our family. It's what I envisioned. And I wanted to believe like it is possible. I just didn't know all the time how to do it. I would kind of switch sometimes more from being permissive, not on purpose, but just, how it is. You're trying to survive. You don't want to have a tantrum, your kid to have a tantrum in front of other people. Lots of factors, right? Many people work and they have a tight time frame to spend with their kids, and there's just a lot going on there. So all that to say that I'm really grateful that we found it. I felt like it matched our family values, and I think it would match a lot of families' values too. Almost basically, unless people didn't care, they wouldn't be seeking out this program, or unless they believe in more authoritarian parenting, which is not a lot of warmth and only structure. But I really think most parents are going to be much more in the middle. They want to just find something that works for their kids and works for them. Isn't where the kids are in control all the time, but where the kids have some input too, where they're seen equally. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I totally agree. I find that a lot of people are drawn to this when I think you were in this place, like more in orientation to gentle parenting. wanting
Yes,
to be
definitely.
connected, maybe having been brought up in a house that was overly authoritarian.
Sure.
Yet if it's all kindness and not also some firmness, then there's chaos and it feels
Right.
really, you were resentful at times. Like
Yeah.
it, the
Mhm.
overwhelm
Oh,
came through.
definitely. Yeah, it was really tough because I really wanted to be kind, but I didn't know how to balance that with like, well, where do I need to be firm, right? Um, that's one of those personal things sometimes as a parent. I think everybody has to work through to some degree of like, because everyone's kind of on a scale on the scale somewhere. And for me, it was like, well, how do I give them that firmness while also being somewhat flexible, but not too flexible? Because in my home, it was, the opposite. It was like there was zero flexibility at all. And so I just kind of found myself fluctuating, you know, not really wanting to set the boundary because then I really thought our highly sensitive 6-year old honestly would not do well with well, let me put it this way. We didn't like saying no to certain things because like for a long time it was just like a really bad tantrum. Like and it would happen like over and over and over again. It wasn't like with the strategies you have taught us where we would set a boundary and he would know that in advance, right? Because we talk about telling them the expectations. And then it would just be over like it is now for the most part. It's really, really rare that he gets really upset. And even when he does, it's like we can usually empathize with him enough that it's not like it was before. He's just like screaming for more than a couple minutes. I mean, it used to be really, really rough with him. And I mean, we just kind of felt like, what do we do? Because we don't we felt like we had to like just separate him. I mean, that was like something we used to do with our first dude, like just make him go to their room. And that was always like the main thing we did. And I'm not saying you can't do that at times, but it was more like that was all we were doing, right? It was okay, well, you did this, so now you were rude to me or whatever, you're screaming, now you have to go be by yourself for a while. And it was a lot more controlled and kind of punitive and not really like a way to work with them. And we still have those discussions of, that's not okay to speak to me that way, or but it's usually kind of after the moment instead of being right in the moment because they're not teachable. They're like you talk about, they're in their amygdala part of their brain and they're in fight or flight. And you definitely see that, especially with the more intense personality kids. They tend to be in that place more easily than other kids. And you kind of feel at a loss for how to deal with it. So, things are so much better than they were before. We had as a little example. He was 5 at the time when we started the program, but our son likes to feel loved, and part of the way he feels loved is by people doing things for him, which is fine. That's okay. But what was happening was at meal times, we would have sat down and we were eating together, and then he would demand that my husband or I get him a fork, like another fork or another cup or whatever it was. And we didn't really know what to do because it just continued, even when we set boundaries and said, no, we're not going to do that. It was like a massive fit every time, pretty much, probably every time. So that's not happening anymore. Like it's not happening at all. We talked to him about it. We said, look, we're not going to be doing this anymore. We are you if we've already sat down and you can get it yourself, you can get it yourself, or you can wait for us until we're done with our meal, or you can have a sibling get it for you, but we're not going to be getting up anymore. And we've just been really consistent in that. And it's helped so much. I realize I'm like needing to look over at the camera again. um, it's so strange, like working with that. Um, but anyways, yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
and it
huge for
sounds
our
like,
family. It's been
and
so huge.
I remember when we were first on that phone call and you described it like, but what if that's his love language? Like, am I
Right.
going to be not being a loving, caring mom to not get that for him?
I really felt like I had to do those things because of who he was. And what I realized is that I can meet those needs in other ways. If that's really the need there, if he really just wants to feel taken care of, I will meet that when he's not being I will meet it when he's being respectful, right? When he's being calm and when I'm okay with doing it. It doesn't mean like he asks me to do something and I'm just never doing that. It means that, you know, uh, like the other night he wanted me to peel an orange for him and I was like, well, you can do that yourself, but I will be happy to do it for you. But yeah, I'm not afraid of saying no now of, well, I'm busy doing this right now. You can wait or do it yourself. Oh, you know what, buddy? I'm going to be off the phone in about 10 minutes and you are welcome to do Prodigy then. But right now, it's going to be too loud for the call. Thank you for waiting and asking so nicely. So, yeah, our relationship is actually a lot better because I'm not yelling all the time. And I'm actually like meeting him where he is. And part of that too is I'm actually taking care of myself. If I'm hungry, I eat. When you have a bunch of little kids, and granted, there are times, like especially if you have a toddler and a newborn, you definitely have those times where you are so busy, you feel like you can't eat. And I'm not going to say that doesn't happen or anything like that. I'm not saying neglect your kids or anything like that, of course. Um, but as they get older, they really do get more independent, and you kind of nobody really tells you when they hit that point. Like there's this huge transition from infancy being completely dependent on you for everything to okay, 3, 4, 5. They can start. You can start teaching them skills one at a time and facilitating that them being more independent. And nobody tells you that. So I was doing everything. I was setting the meal for all, I was setting the table for all the meals. I was cooking every single thing. I didn't really have a boundary for when they needed to get dressed and make their beds because we are at home. We are a homeschooling family, and I just didn't know like how to make it work in a way that wasn't just going to cause conflict after conflict after conflict. Because like you said, like I didn't have a lot of those tools, but I didn't want to be permissive either. And so it's just given us a great framework for figuring that out together and doing what works for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it sounds like you are in this place now where you have the boundaries. They don't mean you're neglecting your child. You can
Right.
take care of you. That's the whole sustainable thing that I value, that I went through my own journey of figuring
Sure.
I thought I had to give. I used to be.
This is Lucy.
Yes.
She's our 1-year-old, and she's a sweet honey. Yeah. I didn't take care of myself like there. I truly did not. I mean, I really felt like and especially with my husband traveling, I really felt like I had to. Hey, Lucy, I know you want to touch it. Please leave it alone because you know what? We don't want to mess it up. Do you want to look at your duck? I really felt like if I didn't like bend over backwards to do all the things, then my kids were just going to like struggle even more. And what's funny is they were already struggling. Like it wasn't making them struggle more to set these boundaries. And actually, it's been the opposite. I mean, we spend a decent amount of time together, of course, but there are days when I'm really busy and I don't spend a ton of time with them all the time. And on those days, even those days, they go to bed peacefully. Like they know that they are loved. They're not like fighting to get out of bed or anything like that. Like they listen, they lay down, they know, hey, I'm gonna come check on you in a few minutes. And sometimes they ask us to lay down for like 5 minutes or so, and we're like, yeah, I'll lay down with you for a few minutes and then I'm gonna go do some other things. And they know that. And like I just feel like they can better rest in our love instead of there being so much more like conflict. And I think a lot of that is like not yelling anymore, not feeling like I need to, not letting myself get to that point because I stop and take care of myself. Or I take deep breaths myself. I do that sometimes if I want them to do that because it helps me calm down too. So that I can react with love instead of fear because I don't want my kids to fear me. I really want to have a healthy, strong relationship that will be their safe place or one of their safe places as they get older and grow into adulthood,
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Completely. Well, thank you so much. I know you have your 4 kids at home while you've been managing this conversation, so I so appreciate your time.
Thanks for giving me the time to talk too. It's really been helpful, and I really appreciate all the hard work you've put into the program. It's been, like I said, it's been definitely like exactly what we needed and what we've been looking for. And my husband, he's more of the let's the parenting thing be more what I like work on, but he's really glad that we did this program too. He's really seen the difference, and he feels better about setting boundaries because his childhood was different but also really really chaotic. And so for him, he is getting a lot better about being more present, about setting those boundaries and holding them. So it's been great for him too, not just for me.
That's awesome. And I remember he was highly skeptical when we were on the first call.
Yeah, I was like actually pretty embarrassed at the time. Like I was just thinking, oh my goodness, like he's very skeptical, and that's okay. Like we need people that are skeptical about some things too.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sees the value and he's eager to do more of the units that he didn't make through the first time. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, honesty is awesome, and I appreciated that he was
Right.
like, really wanting to hear what is this going to do for us, and
Sure.
don't like blow it up as something that's going to make everything perfect, or we were just
Yeah.
having a real conversation about his questions.
I bet. Yeah, he just wanted to know that it wasn't like, okay, you do this program and everything will be perfect and there will never be a struggle again. And I love that too because that's authenticity to me. And if someone tells me, "Oh, this is going to like solve all of your problems." There was another program we looked into that was kind of the feeling, the vibe and everything, and it wasn't realistic. And I love that you are authentic about it and actually said, hey, this isn't going to make everything perfect, but it will give you a way to deal with things better and work towards your family goals. And that's been completely true for our family. So, I mean, there's very few things. Our intense kids are the ones where I still get kind of caught up in like, how do I prevent any meltdown ever? And I know you've told me that's not possible. But like, I know that I can deal with it when it happens. And I did not have that confidence before. I felt very, very insecure about it and very just unsure what to do. So, yeah, all the tools have been really helpful.
Amazing. I'm so glad you're leaving with that confidence and all of that.
Thanks. Me too.
Yay. Well, Lucy and Rachel, thank you for joining us. And we just so appreciate you sharing your story.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.